All set? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First, we'll start with acknowledgement of treaties of peace and friendship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Maliseet, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of the lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Now moving on to reaffirm our oath of office. We do hereby accept the office of council and will diligently, faithfully, and impartially discharge to the best of our ability the duties of the office as may be imposed upon us by law. Next is 1.3, moment of reflection. I'd like to have a moment of reflection for the following people who have passed away over the last month. For June, Mary Hilda Legacy of Beldoon, Dwayne Lapointe of Lorne, Malcolm Mackey Hickey of Beldoon, Jean-Eudes Godin of Beldoon, and Hazel Hickey of Beldoon. Moment of silence. Okay, we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? No, so clerk, can you please read the motion?
M 2026-07-20-72, that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, Councillors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have all voted in favor. There are no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Next is Section 3, Statements of Conflict of Interest. Are there any statements by members of council? So, no, we'll move on to item 4, adoption of the minutes. And that was provided to everybody. So we'll have clerk, can you read that motion?
M 2026-07-20-73, that the minutes of the Oath of Office Council meeting of June 1st, 2026, the regular meeting of June 1st, 2026, and the regular meeting of June 15th, 2026 be adopted as presented.
Do I have a mover?
Point of information, please. I'd like to make a correction. It was my error on the June 15th minutes. I had said that the budget was submitted by November the 30th, and it should have said November the 15th.
So in that instance, I think we're going to have to adopt with changes.
Okay. So we're going to adopt the meeting with the changes presented by Councillor Cormier. And so I have do I need a mover for that, or have the clerk? Yep.
M 2026-07-20-73, that the minutes of the Oath of Office Council meeting of June 1st, 2026, the regular meeting of June 1st, 2026, and the regular meeting of June 15th, 2026 be adopted with changes.
Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, Councillors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have all voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Next is 4.1, business arising from the minutes. Are there any business arising from the minutes presented? That'll be no, so we'll move on to the next section. Petitions, presentations, petitions, and delegations, there's nil. Next section is 6, statements by members of council, beginning with Councillor Cormier.
My agenda disappeared. 1 second. Okay, council often receives inquiries from citizens regarding the dangerous and/or unsightly premises in the community, and they are wondering what is being done for these. While these types of activities do not fall under the RTIP or closed meeting required, if the location of the property is identified, like the civic number or the PIN number, but it does, as long as it doesn't identify individual owners and their personal information. So I was requesting that the CAO perhaps prepare a report on the list of dangerous and/or unsightly premises that's being worked on by the municipality for council and public.
If it's all right with council, I wouldn't mind giving a quick little summary right now, and I can follow up with a report to council. I can kind of do a sort of a high-level overview here because it is important information. It was addressed very briefly with the previous council towards the end of their term. So I can provide some sort of high-level information to council right now. There are some files that are sort of in a holding pattern. As council is aware, we're always looking for opportunities to be able to share the information on the files that we have. So this is a great opportunity, and it would allow for those progress to keep on being made on the files. So very high level, the previous council did begin the process on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different properties, I believe around 2023. The dangerous and unsightly clause that's in the Local Governance Act is there. It allows for municipalities to be able to identify either dangerous structures or unsightly properties in communities, and it allows for a municipality to be able to go enter onto that land and remedy the situation on their own, which is obviously it's a very, very big deal, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. You're entering on a private property, which is of course something that all municipalities try to avoid to the best of their ability. Council started the process on this back in 2023. We've actually got a little report that was read out by the previous council, and I'll sort of finish off when I explain it to the public and to council the process. I'll have that report, and I'll include that as a report to council whenever we have this all wrapped up. Effectively, properties are identified. There's a lot of different ways that properties can be identified. With the last iteration, when the council went through it, it was actually done by the fire department. It was raised during a fire committee meeting where the fire department had identified properties that they felt were dangerous and needed to be actioned. Council agreed and asked for a report to be issued for each property, which the fire department did do. Ultimately, for Belledune, the bylaw enforcement officer that has been appointed is the inspector with the Regional Service Commission, Marcel Doran. We had Marcel Doran and Stéphane Doucette, who were appointed as bylaw officers. Stéphane has moved on to a different role since, so we do have Marcel that's in place. So ultimately, whenever a property is identified, the inspector will go on site and do an inspection if they warrant, of course, there is a lot of calls that the inspector might receive that might not necessarily categorize, in their opinion, that property be dangerous or unsightly. So they'll need to go on site and verify. When they do, then a courtesy letter is issued to the property owners, letting them know the circumstances around the property and what needs to be done to remedy the situation. And usually with that courtesy letter, there's a time frame that's associated to it. If the property is not actioned in that time frame, then there is an order that's issued against the property. That's the next step. And the order is the legal document. So it is a pretty rigorous process to go through that because this is part of the act. It's a very legal process. So there's lawyers involved in it and inspectors. Ultimately, with Beldoon, of the 7 properties that were initiated, 2 of them, I believe, were actually remedied through the courtesy letter. As soon as those property owners got the courtesy letter, they recognized there was an issue and those properties were taken care of. One, the property was actually completely cleaned up by the property owner. And the other one, they actually had reached out and said that they were in the process of selling the property to an adjacent property owner. And that property owner ended up rectifying the situation. So they took down the dilapidated structure. The bottleneck for Beldoon previously and where we really stalled on it is when an order to comply is issued. In the act, it specifies that the property owner has the right to an appeal. And that's where it was difficult for Beldoon during the last run. Beldoon did not have an appeals committee in place at that time. So that's where it really bottlenecked for Beldoon. It took a lot of time to find residents. It's a difficult committee to sit on, as you might imagine. There's some pretty difficult decisions that have to be made. So it took quite a while to find people that were interested in doing this. But we did eventually find 4 members. And they have been appointed. They have received training. They have received the legal training that needs to be in place for this type of role. And so we were able to move forward with the appeal processes. So of the 5 properties that were appealed, we ended up having hearings for 2 of the properties. Ultimately, one of those 2 properties has been actioned. Beldoon has gone on site and cleaned that property up and has collected the invoice from the contractor and accumulated the legal fees on it. There was one property that was not appealed, so that property has also been actioned. And where the file currently stands right now is there is one property that has gone through the appeal process, so that has been completed. It was wrapped up towards the end of last year, and it was getting late in the year for a contractor to go on site. And we've wanted to get this information in front of council to let them know that we are going to be processing this last property that hasn't been actioned yet. And that's actually prepared and ready to go. We can do that as early as tomorrow. We can put a tender out for that. So that's ready to go. Outside of those files, we do have one last file where the hearing has not been set yet. So that hearing that we have for the last one, we expect to have this fall. The appeals committee is aware and they're prepared for the meeting. Both myself and clerk treasurer Buckle are involved in that process as well. It is pretty onerous. It is a long process. It's definitely not taken lightly. So there's a lot of, it's very resource heavy. So when a dangerous, and this is something that we've only learned as we've gone through the process, it does take a lot of resources to move a file along. So when we get the ball rolling on one, it's important that we really concentrate on it and keep on moving it. Just so council is aware, in our experience that we've gone through here, you are looking at a relatively big bite finance-wise. On average, I would say a property usually costs around $22,000. That's what we've got. That's for contractors, that's for lawyers, that's for any peripheral costs associated to actioning the property. Now, what Beldoon can do once we're not completely out that money. What happens is once we have all of those invoices together, Beldoon needs to demonstrate that we've reached out to the property owner on 3 different occasions to request that money back. We have to demonstrate that we've tried to collect that money from the property owner, and after 3 unsuccessful attempts, we are able to submit to the province, and the province will review the files, compensate Beldoon for the lost amounts, and then those amounts get applied to the land taxes of those properties. So eventually, at some point, the property owner becomes responsible for the expenses along that. That's very, very high level, the process. I do have a report that we did put together for the previous council, and I'll run through it real quickly. It does outline the steps. It is good, again, that members of the public understand the process and sort of who's responsible for what. So the first step is identification of the dangerous or unsightly premises, which can be done in multiple different ways. It can be done by complaints from the public. It can be done by members of council or members of staff. Ideally, everything gets funneled to the inspector, to the gentleman who goes on site to inspect it. It all goes through him. So their preference will always be that there's some sort of a professional involved that has an expertise on it. Whether it's your fire department that says, look, we feel that these houses are dilapidated and there's a risk of fire, or whether it's a structural engineer, somebody who has familiarity with the process. So the properties are identified, and then there's a preliminary assessment that's done by the bylaw enforcement officer. You know, they're looking for health and safety risks, they're looking for environmental concerns, structural concerns, that type of thing. After that, there is the notice to the property owner, as I'd mentioned before. That's going to outline the condition of the property and the work that's required, and they'll put in a time for that property owner to action the property, which in general terms is not a lot of time. Usually, they only give around 2 weeks to say, that they expect some progress within 14 days. After that, there's the issuance of an order to comply if there's no action by the property owner. The order to comply is going to specify in it exactly what needs to be done, and it's also going to have timelines associated to it. The inspector will then monitor compliance. After the order has been issued, they'll visit the site to make sure that there is progress on it. And along that line, that's when the owner has an opportunity to appeal. So then if they do appeal, whether they need, the idea of the appeals hearing is for the inspector to present the case to the appeals committee, the property owner to present their case to the appeals committee, and the appeals committee has usually a very difficult situation where they need to be able to listen to both sides and come to a reasonable conclusion. I would like to point out that in both instances where we have had hearings, the committee has made the decision to uphold the recommendation made by the inspector, primarily because the processes that these undertook were so long. Like I mentioned, the process began in 2023. It took nearly a year to put together an appeals committee when we got to that point. So because there was such a tremendous amount of time that we were getting into 2025, so the appeals committee really upheld the recommendations of the inspector because of the time frame. So then after that, after the appeals are done, the municipality would have the opportunity to undertake the work. We do that through a tender with local contractors. At that point, those tenders are approved by council. So that would be kind of the first step in the process where there's council involvement and council approval for those the tendering. Of course, along the way, council would be up to speed on whatever files. It really is ultimately council's decision on which properties get actioned, even though the Service Commission would only will go through one point of contact, which is the CAO. Obviously, we will get the directive from council on that. After the work, then we have the cost recovery, which is something that we actually haven't. We've received all the legal bills and invoices that go along with that, and we're actually in the process right now of being able to demonstrate that we've put it out to the property owners for the recovery. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. That's where we are right now with the existing files. We do have one that we expect to go out to tender this very, very soon. As soon as council is ready for that, we're just looking for an opportunity to share this information, so we can do that probably this week. And then we will be arranging for the last hearing for this fall. So I'll provide all this. I've got all this information collected together for council. I'll put together a report for you guys, and I'll have that sent off to you through email. And if council would like that attached to the next council meeting, we can make sure that that's included with the agenda package. I'll do my best to answer any questions if there are some. So yeah, I guess that's where we're.
So any questions from council before we move on to 6.4.2?
If I may, Your Worship? This is always a very, very difficult decision. I'll use the word, the courage of council is imperative because we are a small community and it does impact our neighbors and maybe in some cases friends and family. But with that said, it comes down to that when a property is assessed and the property has been confirmed that it is a dangerous premise, I, for one, am going on the record to say that I would support that recommendation to the end. And I say it that way only because our community will not be in a better position if we are hesitant at this table to deal with the issues that are in front of us. The only statement that I would make to that would be there is a tremendous difference between unsightly and dangerous. Unsightly becomes in the eye of the beholder. Dangerous becomes to the public. So, you know, I may have a much more difficult time looking at something that is, for lack of a better word, unsightly than something that is dangerous. Once it's reached the dangerous stage and has been confirmed to be in that position, I'm 100% behind the process to move forward and either force the property owner or take the alternative route to have the village of Beldoon take the courses it needs to facilitate the results we're looking for. I also understand the statement made by our CAO saying that these processes are expensive, and they are. But with that said, we will never clean up our community unless we are prepared to take the action that we need to take to bring it to the say site that we wish to have it at. So I'm just asking council to keep in mind that dangerous is different than unsightly, that yes, there is an expense to this, but the process is what we have asked for. I know that there have been, in the previous council, the major holdups became that once an appeals committee was put in place, they had difficulty having meetings, you know, because either the chair was away and somebody couldn't make it and they didn't have enough to form the quorum. Has that problem been rectified?
Yes, absolutely. So right now we have 4 members of the committee in place, and we only require 3 for a hearing. We've done that purposefully. We put in redundancy. It's also a point for conflict. If there is a property that comes up and a committee member needs to make a decision on it, could be a family member's property. So we actually have a spare that we cycle in and out. Just to build on Councillor Burke's comments there. Another thing for council to consider in this is that, and I did raise this with the previous council, dangerous and sightly is part of the act, and it's sort of the extreme of the extreme of the act. It's put in place sort of as a last measure. So there's certainly some things that Beldoon might be able to do along the way that are a little bit less invasive, right? Forming bylaws, a community upkeep bylaw, something along those lines. So, and that was really initiated through our understanding of how involved this process is, how long it takes, how pricey it could get. So that's something for the council to consider. We have kind of thrown a couple of drafts together, but it is sort of a gap that council might be able to action these things a little bit more effectively with.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, after we adjourn, we'll take your questions after that. So we'll move on to 6.4.2, 2025 annual report.
The Department of Local Government requires the municipality to have an annual report by June 30th of each year for the preceding year, and I'm just wondering to get an update as to when we would be possibly receiving that annual report.
So as you know, I was off for a little while, only coming back on the 22nd of June. So I have started the annual report, but there is quite a bit of work that has to go into it. I'd say I'm probably 40 to 50% of the way through it. Hopefully I'll have something out to council in the next couple of weeks, and then we can have it on the August agenda to have it approved and then posted.
So we're moving on to, there's no more presentations by members of council, so we'll move on to item number 7, administrative reports, starting with CEO Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have the social environmental grant report. We did have one request that came in for $250 for the ALS Society of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. So we have item 74, and if it's okay with the mayor, we can have the clerk read that item.
Please proceed.
M 2026-0720-74, that the CAO grant report for July 2026 be accepted as presented and recommendations approved. $250 to the ALS Society of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia.
Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
To the question? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson all voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, the next item that we have, we're just looking for a little bit of direction from council on this one. We did have a request for a parcel of property to be purchased by a resident. So we have put together, effectively all we're looking for at this point right now from council's direction to the CAO. We are looking for your desire on whether or not you would like to move this parcel over. And we have provided council with a couple different scenarios on which has only been based on assessment value. We have not gone through the process of a fair market value, but we did put a couple scenarios together for council on different assessed values in that surrounding property. So all we're looking for at this point is for council to issue a directive on if you do have a desire to sell and to give administration an idea of what type of model you would like to use, just so that we can move that along to the requestor. If it turns out that it's just not financially viable for them, or if it's not something, then there is the possibility that it might not move forward. But all we're looking for at this point is the desire of council. We have made contact with the Service Commission, and they've provided sort of the steps for administration and council to follow. And the first item is just to identify council's desire to move this property and an idea of the pricing.
Any recommendations or by members of council?
Your worship, would this require a motion?
No, sir, we don't need a motion on this one. If we get to the point where we've moved it along to the requester and he goes through the process of surveying, subdividing, he's responsible for all of that. That's not at the cost of the municipality. If we get to the point where that comes to fruition and it happens, at that point, yes, we are going to require a motion of council to sell that property, to dispose of the property. At this point right now, all we need to do is we just need to form, if council ultimately does not have the desire to move this piece of property, that's a pretty quick conversation. We just reach out to the requester and say, unfortunately, it's not something that council's interested in doing, and then the process doesn't. So all we need right now is just a direction of council. So we're just looking for recommendations.
I'd just like to make a point of information as well. It referred to, like, normally when a property is being sold, it's the property owner that has to do the survey, has to do the subdivision plan, and has to prepare the purchase and sale agreement. So with that in mind, if all those costs would be borne by the village up front, but they would have to be built into the purchase and sale agreement, that all of those would be recouped. So it would be a good idea, I guess, if we could get a ballpark figure on what it would cost to do that, so we can let the property owner know, in addition, if council is going to sell, what the selling price is, but what all those other costs that would have to be built in on top of that, so that they would know in the end what their total cost would be.
So I think that's a pretty solid recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Cormier.
Just, if I may, Your Worship,
Okay.
I have no issues with the comments made by Councillor Cormier. But if we were to say it that way, in the sense of saying that we're going to have it surveyed and we're going to have it, evaluated and so on, and add it to the price of that work would already be done. And the owner could say, well, no, now I'm not quite interested.
Just a clarification on that. I didn't mean for us to proceed to get that done. I meant to direct the CAO to perhaps he could go out and get an estimate on what the price would be. He could ask our lawyer, what does it cost to draft a purchase and sale agreement? He could ask the survey, what would be an estimated cost to survey? He could find out if there's a cost of preparing the before we do it. And then we would have an estimated figure to add to whatever price of council deems to sell. Then they would know up front before anybody spends any money.
So, and just one last comment to that would be, if all was said and done, and council agreed that we're going to sell the property and move forward, would we be out of line by asking for a down payment on the property so that we don't go through all the motions and then the buyer back out? So if, for example, that came to, I'm going to grab a figure and say the cost of that would be $4,000. Would we, and I don't think I'm out of line on that, when you look at surveying and lawyer fees to deal with this, if that were agreed upon and the buyer and council has agreed to sell the property if he's interested, and I'm not trying to put words in council's mouth, what I'm trying to say is, if we are in agreement to sell the property, then to ask the property owner who wants to buy that the down payment would have to be $4,000 non-refundable, so that he doesn't back out of the deal along the line.
So I'm sure that there's different iterations of sale agreements that we could get into when we got to that. Generally speaking, they would be facilitated through lawyers, right? So the money would go in trust. So they would have to. There's usually they have catches in there with the lawyers that would be covered. Yeah.
Okay, we have next item on the agenda is 7.1.3, update on meeting with Premier by Cioli.
Just one more question, if I may, Your Worship. I don't know if we're clear on, or I'm not clear. Is council in agreement to looking at selling the property? I guess that's what's the question. I mean, there's no sense going through the motions if we're not going to sell it, right? Are we looking at selling the property, or are we looking for information to come back before we make that decision?
We're basically looking at directing Cioli to do the research in relation to costing before we look at selling, and maybe communicating with the various parties involved. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think from the administration perspective, yeah, if we're receiving the directive to go out and find the pricing associated with subdividing, et cetera, I'm kind of working under the umbrella that council is in favor of selling. And if we have any concerns, then, I'll progress this file under the understanding that council is looking to do it, and we'll put the pricing together, and we'll follow up with the requester. I certainly don't mind to reach out to them after this meeting, let them know there is an interest from council. However, there's some work that needs to be done. So we'll put that together as quickly as we can and get back to them with a number.
Just another point of information, when we look at the issue that why the person wants to buy the property, we have to take that into consideration too, because there's already an infringement of a building on part of municipal property. So if we're not interested in selling, then we have the other issue of a building being partially on village property. So we'd have to address that, which would be a cost to us for sure. So just putting that out there so everybody thinks of it.
Thank you, Councillor Cormier. I was about to note that the reason why this has come to council is because there's an encroachment on the said property. So thank you. Moving on to administrative reports with update on the Premier. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Mayor Lapointe and I were invited to a meeting with Premier Susan Holt and the MLA for the area, Marco LeBlanc. Marco is the MLA for both Belledune and Belle Bay, so he did invite the CAO and the Mayor of Belle Bay to the meeting as well. We met with Premier Holt and Minister Aaron Kennedy of Environment and Local Government and Deputy Mayor Charbel Awad. Effectively, the meeting was really essentially just the Premier reaching out to the communities and just asking for priorities around things that they would like to see, if there was something that the Premier could help with in her office to move things along for each community. The timing of the meeting ironically fell right when we had Service New Brunswick reaching out to Belledune for an update, which was not a good update. And it is good information, I think, that we have out to residents right now. But there was a reassessment that was done with NB Power. There were some reports in the media around the reassessment and some figures that were shared in the media. Ultimately, we met directly with the assessment office, and the shortfall that we were expecting the number was actually higher than what we were expecting. So Belledune expects to have a decrease of around $1 million in tax revenue because of the reassessment of NB Power. So it was going to create some real difficulties for this council. For sure, there's going to be a lot of work that's going to need to be done around the 2027 budget. In speaking with the minister, he did mention that in 2028 he expected there to be some sort of an equalization or transitional grant that would come to Belledune. So hopefully it's going to be a shortfall for 1 year only, but we don't really have the information around that, the program that he was referring to. We're still working to build that out, and I do think that we might in the future be sending a letter just for clarification around that. However, regarding the meeting that we had, because of the timing of it, there was some pretty critical things that that the mayor had and council collectively wanted to bring up. So the top priorities that that we were discussing with the Premier was around a reform of the provincial formula that is used for contributions from municipalities. So anyone that's listening to this who is not familiar with what this formula is, it was developed by the province and they use it quite extensively right across the board. It's a formula that's based 50% on population and 50% on tax assessment. So for Belledune, population is always favorable. We have a low population, so anything that's around that, it usually works out in our favor. Tax assessment does not. We have a very high tax assessment for the amount of people and for the, so the formula, there's a recognition that for most communities in New Brunswick, it works very well. For Belledune is probably one of the 5% that it does not work well for. Just to give an idea of the formula, you know, our current RCMP billing is around $820,000 a year. That's what we pay RCMP for per year from Beldoon alone. And that's really driven because of the high tax assessment. And now it's, the level of service we can continue to work with RCMP on, but ultimately, as we sort of explained to the Premier, it's really the number component of it that makes it difficult for Beldoon. So although Beldoon does have a healthy tax coming in, there's also a lot of things that are not in Beldoon's control, and you kind of have it go right out. So one of the requests was using Beldoon as a pilot for a revised provincial cost sharing formula, where they could use kind of take a look at Beldoon and see what might work for the communities like ours. It should be noted too that the assessments that were done with MB Power were not only Beldoon. We're not impacting only Beldoon. It's really any community that has a facility of theirs was going through this. So one of the items that was raised was the idea of a reform for a provincial cost sharing formula. Another priority that was put in front of them was the idea of a provincial industrial investment and assessment stabilization program, exactly for this type of thing. If there is, when Beldoon went through this with the smelter, there was a recognition that Beldoon was going to feel the impacts of this, and rather having it, because it was almost not sustainable for it to happen immediately, there was a transition. So the government subsidized Beldoon incrementally over the run of 4 or 5 years. So we were looking for that to be considered as well for this reassessment. The last thing which could hopefully work with Beldoon in the long run was around a revision to one of their funding sources that they have that's now called the Building Canada Strong Fund. And on a lower level, it's the Building Community Strong Fund. So it's replacing a program that we already have in place, the CCBF Fund, which is the Canada Community Building Fund. And what we were looking for there is for Beldoon to receive some sort of an industrial type designation by the Premier, sort of identifying Beldoon as the one of the industrial leaders in the hub. And, that would hopefully make way for things like infrastructure or economic development incentives to be a little bit more, readily available for Beldoon. If there's any sort of services that need to be put in for the industry, something to help us build the industry back up after feeling this assessment. So those were kind of the 3 items that were raised by Beldoon. I don't know if the mayor has anything that he wants to contribute to that. Just on a responsive perspective, I do think that the information was well received by the Premier. Certainly there was no commitment on what it was that they might be able to progress, but there was a recognition that we are in a difficult situation with taxes, with the tax revenue over the next little while. So hopefully we can give it a little bit of time to work with the Premier and follow up, see if there's any progress made. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if there's anything that you want to contribute to that.
Thank you for the report on that. Yeah, I just wanted to add that we also spoke collectively around one of Premier Holt's major priorities was healthcare, and we looked at we had discussions around our health clinic. So we looked at ways that we could attract new medical professionals to our health clinic and see if we can improve the level of service at that facility. And that was basically, and we talked about a revised formula for placing services because of the amount that Beldoon is currently paying. So we kind of put a focus on those 2 items that were costing us, or the placing service is costing us quite a bit, but also healthcare is a major priority in our community. So moving on to 7.2, reports by Clerk Treasurer Buckle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so starting with the general operating fund, we had a balance carry forward from May of, sorry, I can't even see these numbers, of $514,677.18. We had various deposits of $358,217.67 and interest revenue of $1,448.24. We had checks issued in the month of June, which includes payroll checks as well, of $773,638.32. Other payments throughout the month that came up to $69,741.23. We had checks outstanding from May of $60,149.77, and the checks outstanding as of the end of June were $242,524.32. That left us with an account balance as of June 30th of $213,338.09. The capital reserve account balance as of June 30th was $3,106,285.61. The general operating reserve account balance was $238,667.86, and the gas tax fund balance as of June 30th was $835,580.17. Accounts payable as of the end of June was $140,025.31, and accounts receivable were $68,184.28. In the utility operating fund, we had a balance carry forward from May of $20,819.98. We had deposits of $2,676.19 and interest of $42.22. Checks issued in the month of June, including payroll, were $4,111.34, and we had online bill payments of $1,365.79. Outstanding checks at the end of May 2026 were $244.16, and the outstanding checks at the end of June 2026 was $789.85, which left us with a balance in the account of $18,606.95. The capital reserve account balance as of June 30th was $97,233.06. The operating reserve account balance was $4,215.15, and the trust account balance was $33,977.32. Accounts payable as of June 30th was $41,172.30, and the accounts receivable was $7,999.25.
And I'll get you to read a motion.
M 2026-0720-75, that the financial report be accepted as presented and the accounts payable be paid.
I need a mover.
I just have a point of information.
Okay.
I'm just inquiring, and I don't know if it's a public, if you can, I'm just wondering what the entrust to J. Andre Dagg is for $6,000 to our legal.
Oh, that was, let me think about this for a moment. We were doing something, oh, the AJM property, Landon? Yeah. Yeah, so we had to give him $6,000 in trust for him to settle that. So that's what it was for the end of June.
And we'll go on to the motion. We need a mover for the accepting of the financial report.
I so move.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, moving on to Section 8, bylaws and policies. There are none. Section 9, motions and resolutions, starting with 9.1, appointment to the Regional Planning Advisory Committee, and I'll get the Clerk Buckle to read the motion.
M 2026-0720-76, that the members of the Belledoux Municipal Council recommend the appointment of Ms. Gina Card as the municipality's representative on the Regional Planning Advisory Committee for a second term ending April 6th, 2030.
I'll have a mover for the motion.
I'll move.
Seconder?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have all voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, moving on to section 9.2, cafe lease, and there's a motion. I'll get to council, or clerk, treasurer, clerk.
M 2026-0720-77, that the lease agreement between the Village of Beldoon and 774571 NB Incorporated, otherwise known as the Beldoon Village Cafe and Dairy Delight, for use of the commercial cafe space located at 2471 Main Street, Beldoon, New Brunswick, for $750 HST included per month, plus $150 HST included for utilities, for a 3-year term with an operator option to extend for 1 year, be accepted, and the mayor and clerk sign the final version of the document.
So I need a mover for that motion.
I so move.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
To the question? Any question regarding the motion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, moving on to 9.3, transfer of funds, and I'll get to Clerk Buckle to read the motion.
M 2026-0720-78, that a transfer of $41,172.30 be made from the Utility Capital Reserve Fund to the Utility Operating Fund for the Chaleur Drive Water Treatment Plant Raw Water Piping Replacement Project. This is a temporary internal bridge loan while awaiting formal approval of the 2019 to 2023 Build Communities Strong Fund, formerly known as the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly known as the Gas Tax Fund.
So I need a mover for that motion.
I'll move.
Seconder?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
Oh, question, sorry.
Utility Capital Reserve Fund is designed for future use, to help offset the cost of an aging system. This system was put in place, I believe, in 2010. So we're looking already at a system that is 16 years old. Life expectancy, I'm told, is somewhere around 25 years. As this system starts to age, and because this is actually a user pay item, which means that the people on Chaleur Drive are responsible for the costs and financing, whatever it costs to do this. Is this reserve growing at a portion that, let's say for argument's sake, 10 years down the road would be viable to bring the system back to us? Because I know we're moving funds, just waiting for funds to come back. But with that said, when you look at one item at $41,000, I don't know if that fund will sustain the requirements that could come down within the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm asking the question, is there enough funds growing in that fund over the years to be able to forecast that in 10 years' time, there's enough money there to, let's say, offset the pain that the people on Chaleur Drive will incur when it is time to start replacing these necessary components?
So just real quickly, the component of the project on this is actually the original water main piping that was installed. So it wasn't done in 2010. This is, I think, maybe 50 years old, this piping that was done. So it was, it's definitely aged. I'll turn it over to the clerk treasurer on information on the building of the fund. I think that we would be limited on that. And sorry, just for a point of clarity on this, Councillor Burke is correct. Because this is a utility, it's separate from our general operating, so we can't, effectively float this because we have had it pre-approved for funding from the province. So because it is a utility, we can't move it from our general operating. We have to pull it from our utility. So this is the capital reserve that was referred to. When the money is brought back by the province, then it would get another resolution would come back to council to have that money re-injected back into that. So understanding that there could be the potential that for whatever reason we wouldn't get that money back from the province, I would also suggest that there's tremendous other sources of funding that we might be able to reach out to. Because this is infrastructure, there is quite a lot of programs. So, but I'll turn it over to the clerk on details around the accumulation of funds.
Councillor Burke, I would say for the amount of money that we're charging to the Schiller Drive residents, that no, this is not building that fund in any way, shape, or form. The funds that we're receiving from those residents are really just covering day-to-day operating. Having said that, and knowing the age of the infrastructure and everything else, to CAO Lee's point, I mean, there are funding streams available, and those are things that I think council would really want to look at when building future plans, like the gas tax fund that is like a 4 or 5 year plan at a time. I would suggest that, we start looking at quotes for things like that and build those into those future plans to make sure that we don't get to a point where, we're sort of between a rock and a hard place, putting something in right away and being more reactionary than proactionary.
If I may, the reason I'm asking that question is because at the time when I was mayor in 2014, this became a real bone of contention as to what would be charging the residents on Schiller Drive. At the time, Clerk Treasurer Cormier, and I were involved, and I guess we developed this utility capital reserve fund for those people to try to build so that it would be less painful down the road. But I recognize that along the way, this fund had to be utilized for repairs and updates and things of that nature, and that stops the price that we are charging Schiller Drive from going up because we're utilizing those funds. But when the time comes, that the infrastructure is no longer viable, that and I recognize it's a very sensitive area because I believe there's like 30 homes on that street that are trying to sustain a water sewage treatment facility. And they are responsible, and at the end of the day, it is a user pay item, and they will be accountable. So, I believe we need to look at a plan for those people down the road so that all of a sudden they have no water and no sewage because of finances, or the funding's not available, or they just plain can't afford it. So with that said, maybe I'll just mention that to council, and it's something, when we talk about budgets in the future, maybe it's something we could maybe throw around just to see where the ideas are and what the future holds.
Just a point of information. I'm not sure, but I believe the village does have a asset management plan. So in that asset management plan, it must give some idea on the infrastructure value today and what the replacement cost would be with that moving forward. So that would be the benchmark as to where we have to be.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. We would be heavily dependent on Infrastructure Canada or similar fund to do a complete life cycle replacement of that asset. Because I know we were sitting on the council together at one time, and it was an issue, and the amount of revenues coming in, as clerk had mentioned, it just covers the day-to-day. Yeah. So moving on to the next motion. Oh, to the vote for that motion. I need a mover. A mover? Okay. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. On to 9.4, 2026 budget meeting review date. And we have a motion. Clerk?
M 2026-0720-79, that a meeting of council be called on a date to be determined by council this evening for the purpose of conducting the 2026 budget review.
Anybody have an idea on a possible date? We'll have a mover for that motion?
I don't believe we can, until we have to set the date, I think
Yeah,
we really
it's-
can't move it, we'd have
yeah.
to have the date. But the
Okay.
date, we should have to put a date in there first.
So any date recommendations on that? We had talked about it before, and we're looking at a date between now and the end of the month.
Just to comment, I believe there are a couple of counselors that have said they won't be available like the last week of July, first week of August. Beldoon Days is coming up, that type of thing. You know, and I know I'm going to be highly busy at that week, but with that said, you know, I don't know if, let's say, the second week in August is too far or not far enough, or do we need something sooner? I'm kind of in that area for me personally.
Mr. Mayor, I would say at this time, it just seems that other people are tied up, and it's very important, I think, that everybody sit in on that meeting. And why I feel that meeting is so important is because of the challenges we're going to see for the 2027 budgets. So we really need to have a good understanding of what is in the 2026 to help guide us in some of the tough decisions we're probably going to have to make for 2027. But where everybody is not available, I guess we'd have to probably work with that second week, maybe in August. And then from that after, we'd be kicking right off into the 2027 budget meetings very soon after, I think. So I'm open to,
Would council be available during the day? Because I know that there's members of council, so I know that we've arranged some meetings, you know, during the day previously. If council's available during the day, maybe we could do something as early as this Friday. I'm sorry?
I thought we were talking about procedure. by
Oh,
law.
okay, sorry, yeah, okay. What is this one for? Budget? Yeah, so we would like to get that going as soon as we can, for sure, yeah. So, okay, yeah, I'll leave that to council.
And, Mr. Mayor, just on another point, maybe that would give the staff the time they need to be able to prepare some reports for us on different programs and stuff, so that we can measure like the revenue expense side of a lot of these programs. So it would give them a bit more time as well to be able to prepare the CEO, clerk, treasurer, and then some of our other staff members in our recreation and our public works guys, so.
What date works best for council in the second week in August? What's that? Good any day?
Well, the Beldoon Days finishes on the 2nd of August, so that's a Sunday. Anytime after that, I think, would be acceptable, you know, if everyone comes to an agreement. So,
How about we shoot for a Tuesday, full day on Tuesday? August the 11th? Yeah. Committee of the whole, okay. Okay, we'll go with August the 11th. Time? Daytime or?
Yeah, up to council.
Okay.
So what, we could do maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah, we could even shoot for 1, like have a full afternoon, 1 to 4. Yeah.
Information, would that be a committee of whole open to the public? Because I don't think they were ever given much of a briefing on budget either, in terms of what's in there. And I
Yeah,
think
well,
and I think it is a public,
Yeah, one way or another, no matter
is?
what, it's public. Yeah, regardless of however it is that you coordinate it, it would be a public meeting.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I'll have Clerk Buckle read the motion.
M 2026-0720-79, that a meeting of council be called on Tuesday, August the 11th, 2026 at 1 PM for the purpose of conducting the 2026 budget review.
I'll move.
Need a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by raising your hands.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to section 9.5, succession planning, and I'll have Clerk Buckle read the motion.
M 2026-0720-80, that council commence the process of having a succession plan prepared for the short-term and long-term absences of critical staff and direct CAO Lee to reach out to get proposals from companies who provide these services.
And I'll have a mover on the motion.
I'll move.
Seconder?
Second that too.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And moving on to 9.6, bylaw and policy review dates. And I'll have you, Clerk Buckle, read the motion.
M 2026-0720-81, that a meeting of council be called on a date to be determined by council for the purpose of reviewing bylaws and policies.
And I'll have a mover.
Just on the date, we had a little bit of previous conversation before the council meeting, and where most of us are not working at this point, except for Mayor Lapointe, and he has Fridays off. We thought maybe if it's possible to meet Friday morning to be able to review the procedural bylaw and the remuneration bylaw. For the point that they're both on the agenda to be first and second readings at the August meeting. And if we don't get the drafts ready and stuff, in a timely manner, particularly with the procedure bylaw, because it's probably going to be quite a lengthy bylaw. And instead of having to read it out in its entirety, we can post it on our website as a draft, as well as make it available at the municipal for viewing, but it has to be so many days before that meeting. So if we wait until later August, we're not going to have that time frame to do that. So we were thinking of this Friday, I know we have a meeting in the afternoon, but if we could do the morning one as council and get that cleaned up and ready to go. That was kind of a pre-discussion we had.
What time were you thinking? Okay. We'll shoot for 9. Okay, so I'll have Councillor Buckle read the motion.
M 2026-0720-81, that a meeting of council be called on Friday, July 24th at 9 a.m. for the purpose of reviewing bylaws and policies.
To the motion? Seconder?
I'll second.
All
I'll
those in
second it.
favor signify by raising your hand.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors Burke, Carrier, Cormier, and Robinson have voted in favor. There were no votes opposed. The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And moving on to 10, general correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the SPC report for June 2026, the Shallora Regional Service Commission building report, building permit report for June 2026, and the Universal Rail Systems track inspection report for June 2026. That's everything for correspondence.
Me again, point of information. I noticed that, noticed that in this Regional Service Commission report that there's some things that's not translated in English, if that's possible, if they can do that. The other question I have, and I was asked this in the public, is there anything that they could incorporate in their report to say applications that were submitted and denied? That was something that citizens asked. The other one was the rail inspection report. Has there been any recommended actions done that was onto the rail inspection report? They had a few recommendations there. We'll go back to the Service Commission on the translation, and we'll also see if we can receive something that specifies if there was reports that were submitted and not approved. So we'll work on that. For the universal, for the track inspection report, what we've actually done is we've moved that responsibility over to the user of the rail. So we receive the report as a something that we've requested because we are the owner of it. However, the maintenance and everything is out of now, not with Beldoon, it's actually with the user. If there is future users on that spur line, then the maintenance would be split between them. However, it doesn't answer your question, so that's something I can reach out to them on. I would suspect that the information that we would receive on that would be along each rail inspection report that we receive. But this is a good question, and I'll go back to Inter4 is really the ones that are primarily using that spur line. Yes, because most likely if the repairs wasn't done, because it is our spur line, we would still be the liable person for it.
So in terms of ownership, that's still under the ownership of the village. Yeah, so,
That's correct, yes.
yeah. So we should be looking at the liability issues surrounding the single user and their use and impacts on that rail line. Yeah. So moving on to 11, closed session, no closed sessions. So number 12, adjournment, and I'll have Clerk Buckle read the motion.
Just prior to adjournment, if I may, Your Worship?
Yep.
I realize that my computer here, I'm using an email. Did I miss out on 9.1?
No, we moved it.
Oh, did we do that?
Yep.
Boys, I must have been sleeping.
So we'll move on to item number 12, adjournment.
M 2026-0720-82, that the meeting adjourn at 8:15.
Have a mover?
I better move it quickly.
Seconder?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise by hand. Motion carried. Thank you.